October 1968. Sammy Davis Jr. was walking through the parking lot behind the Apollo Theater in Harlem when he heard it. A sound that made him stop cold. Not music, not applause. The sound of a child crying, trying desperately to muffle the sobs so nobody would hear. Sammy had heard that particular kind of crying before, the kind that comes from shame mixed with pain, from being hurt in a way that leaves no visible bruises. He followed the sound to the alley, between the theater and the adjacent building. There, behind a dumpster, sat a small black boy, maybe 11 years old, with torn clothes, a bloody nose, and scuffed knees. But what caught Sammy's attention wasn't the physical damage. It was what the kid was doing while he cried. His feet were moving, tapping out a rhythm on the concrete, unconscious and automatic, like his body needed to dance, even when his heart was breaking. Sammy approached slowly, the way you'd approach a wounded animal. "You okay, little man?" The boy's head snapped up, and his eyes went wide with recognition. Even through tears and pain, he knew who he was looking at. Sammy Davis Jr., the Sammy Davis Jr., standing in an alley, talking to him like they were old friends. "I'm fine," the boy said automatically, wiping his face with the back of his hand and trying to stand up. His leg buckled, and he winced. Not fine. Sammy crouched down, getting on the kid's level. "What's your name?" "Marcus. Marcus Williams." "Well, Marcus Williams, I've been doing this a long time, and I know what sign looks like. This ain't it. You want to tell me what happened?" Marcus hesitated. Adults usually didn't care. Adults usually told him to toughen up, to fight back, to stop being so sensitive. But something about the way Sammy looked at him, with genuine concern and no judgment, made the story pour out. "There's these boys at school," Marcus said, his voice small. "They call me names, say I'm weird, say boys aren't supposed to dance. Today in gym class, I was practicing some steps I learned watching Soul Train, and they saw me. After school, they followed me here and—" He gestured at his torn shirt, his bloody nose. "They said if they catch me dancing again, it'll be worse." Sammy's jaw tightened. He'd lived this story himself 40 years earlier. Different decade, same hatred. The world had a particular kind of cruelty reserved for boys who dared to be different, who chose art over athletics, who moved to their own rhythm instead of marching in someone else's line. "How long's this been going on?" Sammy asked. "Since school started. 2 months." Marcus's voice cracked. "I tried to stop dancing. I really did. But I can't. It's like breathing. Even when I'm sitting still, my feet want to move. Even when I'm scared, I'm counting beats in my head. My mama says it's a gift." Sammy sat down on the concrete next to Marcus, not caring about his expensive suit. "Let me tell you something, Marcus Williams. Those boys who hurt you, they're afraid." Marcus looked confused. "Afraid of me? I'm smaller than all of them." "Not afraid of your size, afraid of your gift. See, most people go through life never finding the thing that makes them feel alive. They're walking around half asleep, just existing. But you've got something that makes you wake up different, that makes you special. And people who don't have that, who can't even imagine what that feels like, they get scared, and scared people hurt what they don't understand." "That doesn't make it hurt less," Marcus said quietly. "No, it doesn't," Sammy agreed. "But understanding why they do it takes away their power. They're not stronger than you. They're weaker, and they know it." Marcus wiped his eyes again. "You really think I'm special?" "I know you're special." Sammy pointed at Marcus's feet, which had never stopped tapping out rhythms on the concrete. "Even after getting beat up, even while crying, you're still dancing. That's not a curse, Marcus. That's a calling. And you can either run from it, or you can own it so completely that nobody can ever use it against you again." "I don't know how to do that," Marcus admitted. Sammy stood up and extended his hand. "Then I'm going to teach you. Come on." Marcus took Sammy's hand and let himself be pulled to his feet. "Where are we going?" "Inside. I've got a show in 2 hours. But right now, you and I are going to have a conversation about what it really means to be a dancer, and about how to turn the thing that makes you a target into the thing that makes you untouchable. 20 minutes later, Marcus Williams sat in Sammy Davis Jr.'s dressing room at the Apollo Theater, holding an ice pack to his nose, while Sammy paced and talked. This was not how Marcus had imagined his Tuesday afternoon going. "First thing you need to understand," Sammy said, "is that dancing isn't about the steps, it's about survival. You know where tap dancing came from?" Marcus shook his head. "Came from slaves," Sammy said bluntly. "Slave owners banned drums because they were afraid slaves would use them to communicate, to organize, to rebel. So our ancestors turned their bodies into drums. They took their pain, their anger, their hope, everything they weren't allowed to say out loud, and they put it in their feet. Every time you dance, you're carrying on a tradition of people who refuse to be silenced. You think those boys at your school are tough? They got nothing on what your ancestors survived, and they survived by dancing." Marcus had never thought about it that way. Dancing had always just been something he loved, something that felt good. He'd never connected it to history, to resistance, to power. "Second thing," Sammy continued, "is that you've been dancing like you're apologizing for it, like you're trying to make yourself smaller so people won't notice. That's backwards. You want to stop being a target? Dance bigger. Dance louder. Dance so good that they can't look away, can't dismiss you, can't reduce you to a punching bag. Make them see you." "But that'll make them mad," Marcus protested. "They're already mad. At least this way, they're mad and impressed. There's a difference." Sammy sat down across from Marcus. "Let me tell you a story. 1943, I was 18, drafted into the Army. First day of basic training, this white kid from Alabama sees me and decides I'm going to be his entertainment. Calls me boy, makes me shine his shoes, slaps me around when I don't move fast enough. This goes on for weeks." Marcus leaned forward, forgetting about his sore ribs. "Then one night, they have a talent show on base, and I get up on that stage and I dance. I dance like my life depends on it, because maybe it does. And when I'm done, that same kid who's been beating on me for weeks, he's standing there with his mouth open. And you know what he says to me the next day? He says, 'Davis, you're the best dancer I've ever seen. Can you teach me?' And just like that, I went from target to teacher. He never hit me again. He never called me boy again. Because I showed him something he couldn't do, something he couldn't take away from me, something that made me valuable instead of vulnerable." "Did you teach him?" Marcus asked. Sammy smiled. "Hell no, but I didn't have to. Just showing him I had something he wanted changed the whole dynamic. That's power, Marcus. Not physical power. Not the power to hurt people. The power to make people see you as fully human, as someone with value, as someone who matters." Marcus absorbed this, his young mind working through the implications. "So, you're saying if I dance better, they'll leave me alone?" "I'm saying if you dance with enough confidence, they won't be able to touch you. Not really. They might still say things. They might still try to make you feel small. But when you know who you are, when you own your gift instead of hiding it, their words bounce off. They can't hurt what they can't diminish." "I don't know if I can do that," Marcus said honestly. "I'm scared." "Good. Use the fear. Every great performer I've ever known was terrified before they went on stage. The difference between amateurs and professionals isn't that professionals aren't scared. It's that professionals know how to turn fear into fuel. You're scared right now. I can see it in your eyes. Now dance anyway." Sammy stood up and pulled Marcus to his feet. "Right here, right now. Show me what you got." "There's no music," Marcus said. "So, you got rhythm, don't you? Make your own music." Marcus hesitated, then began to move. At first, his movements were tentative, careful, like he was afraid of taking up too much space. But Sammy started snapping his fingers, creating a beat, and Marcus's body responded. His feet found the rhythm. His shoulders loosened. For just a moment, he forgot about the bullies, forgot about the pain, forgot about everything except the movement. "Better," Sammy said when Marcus stopped, "but you're still dancing like you're asking permission. Dance like you own the room." Again. Marcus tried again, pushing himself to be bigger, bolder. His arms extended further. His steps got sharper. He added a spin he'd seen on television but never tried before, and it worked. "Yes," Sammy shouted. "That's it. You see what happened there? You took a risk, you tried something new, and it worked because you committed to it. That's the secret, Marcus. Commitment. If you're going to dance, dance all the way. Don't do anything halfway." For the next hour, Sammy worked with Marcus, teaching him not just steps, but presence, how to stand like he belonged, how to move through space like he owned it, how to make eye contact instead of staring at the floor, how to finish a movement with authority instead of apology. "Your body tells a story before you ever say a word," Sammy explained. "Right now, your body's saying, 'I'm sorry I exist.' We're going to change that story. Your body's going to say, 'I'm here, I'm talented, and you're lucky to be watching this.'" They worked on posture, on breathing, on the mental game of performance. Sammy shared tricks he'd learned from 5 decades of being on stage. How to use silence, how to build tension, how to make people lean forward in their seats. Techniques that Marcus was too young to fully understand, but old enough to begin implementing. "One more thing," Sammy said, checking his watch and realizing his show started in 30 minutes. "The most important thing. You listening?" Marcus nodded. "Your gift is not just for you. It's for everyone who sees it. Every time you dance, you're giving people permission to be themselves, to celebrate what makes them different, to take up space in a world that's constantly telling them to shrink. Those boys at school who hurt you, somewhere deep down, they wish they had the courage to move like you do, to not care what people think, to express themselves. You're not dancing for their approval. You're dancing to show them what freedom looks like." Tears sprang to Marcus's eyes again, but different tears this time. Not pain, recognition, understanding, the feeling of being seen, really seen, maybe for the first time in his life. "Now get out of here," Sammy said, but his voice was kind. "You got school tomorrow, and I got a show tonight. But Marcus Williams, I want you to promise me something." "Anything," Marcus said. "Promise me you won't stop dancing. No matter what they say, no matter what they do, because the world needs what you've got. And if you give up, if you let them take this from you, they win. And I don't accept losing. Neither should you." "I promise," Marcus said. "But Mr. Davis, what if they hurt me again?" Sammy knelt down one more time, looking Marcus straight in the eyes. "Then you heal, and you dance again, and you keep doing that until they get tired, until they give up, until they realize you're not going to break. Because you're stronger than they are, Marcus. You're carrying something they'll never have, and that makes you dangerous in the best possible way." Marcus left the Apollo Theater that night with a bloody nose, torn clothes, and bruised ribs. But he also left with something he'd never had before: the unshakable belief that his difference was his power, not his weakness. The next day at school, when Marcus walked into the cafeteria, the same boys who'd beaten him up the day before were waiting. They saw him coming and stood up, ready for round 2. The old Marcus would have turned around, would have found somewhere to hide, would have made himself small. But Marcus didn't do that. Instead, he put his tray down, stood in the middle of the cafeteria, and started to dance. Right there, no music, no announcement, just dancing. The cafeteria went silent. 300 students stopped eating, stopped talking, stopped everything to watch this skinny kid with a bandaged nose dancing like he was on Soul Train. Marcus did every move Sammy had taught him. He danced big, he danced loud, he danced with commitment and confidence and complete disregard for what anyone thought. And when he finished, the cafeteria erupted in applause. Not polite applause, wild, enthusiastic applause. Kids were standing on tables. Teachers were clapping. Even the bullies, the same ones who'd hurt him the day before, were staring with something that wasn't quite respect yet, but wasn't contempt anymore either. From that day forward, Marcus Williams was known as the kid who dances. But the tone was different now. Not mocking, not cruel, impressed, curious, respectful. He still got teased sometimes, but nobody ever put their hands on him again, because he'd shown them something they couldn't take away, something that made him valuable instead of vulnerable. Marcus never forgot that afternoon in Sammy's dressing room. He carried those lessons through middle school, high school, and eventually to Broadway, where he became a choreographer and dance teacher. And every time he worked with a student who was struggling, who felt different, who'd been made to feel like their gift was a curse, he'd tell them the story of the day Sammy Davis Jr. found him crying behind a dumpster and taught him that survival sometimes looks like a shuffleball change. In 1990, Marcus was teaching at Alvin Ailey when he got the news that Sammy had died. He closed his studio for the day, went home, and danced for 2 straight hours. Not choreographed, not performed, just moved. It was his way of saying thank you. His way of proving he'd kept his promise. His way of honoring the man who taught him that dancing wasn't just about entertaining people. It was about refusing to be erased. Years later, Marcus's own students would ask him why he pushed them so hard, why he demanded they dance bigger, bolder, with more commitment. And he'd tell them about a bloody nose and torn clothes, about a bloody nose and torn clothes, about a legend who stopped to help a hurt kid in an alley. He'd tell them that dancing isn't just movement, it's declaration, it's resistance, it's survival. It's proof that you exist and you matter, and you will not be silenced. And then he'd make them dance again, because that's what Sammy would have wanted. Not perfect, not safe, but real, committed, and absolutely refusing to apologize for taking up space in a world that constantly tells certain people they don't deserve to be seen. If this story of courage, mentorship, and turning pain into power moved you, like and subscribe for more untold stories of legends who changed lives one conversation at a time. Share this with someone who needs to hear that their difference is their strength. Have you ever had someone teach you to own what makes you different? Tell us in the comments. And hit that notification bell, because these stories matter, and the people who live them deserve to be remembered.